Okay, so guys, I just want to welcome everybody here. I'm here today with somebody really amazing. Her name's Angela Irwin. She is a confidence coach and she is the founder of the Joyful Life Cochlear Implant Fund, which is the only nonprofit in the United States that helps people who have cochlear implants keep them working and keep them on the air so that they're able to hear. So, Angela, I just want to say welcome. So awesome.
Thank you, Tiffany. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to our time.
Yeah. So, okay, we've got some fundraising that is underway, and I thought it would be really cool if we could just get together and talk a little bit about what you do, what cochlear implants are, why people need help, financial assistance to keep them working. So, can we start off with just kind of the basics? Like, what exactly is a cochlear implant?
Okay, so absolutely. Most people don't really know when I say that word cochlear implant, they're like, I don't know what that is. So, unfortunately, this absolutely amazing, life changing technology is over 40 years old, but hardly anyone in the general public knows about it unless they know someone who has one or they have one themselves. I myself am a cochlear implant recipient for the last 25 years. So I refer to it as basically getting a second chance at life. Um, but cochlear implants are made up of two components. So the first part is an internal part that is implanted, surgically implanted, to take the place of the damaged part of the ear. And then there's an external component that's called a sound processor that you need the two components to be able functioning to be able to hear. So they're actually classified as a prosthetic device. So it's, I think, sometimes helpful to sort of liken it to everyone knows about prosthetic limbs, right?
Yeah.
So when someone has a prosthetic limb and they have the limb, they can do almost anything, right? If they don't have that limb and they're missing one, they're limited. And cochlear implants are very similar. So we have to have that external component functioning in order to have the full system working. So without the external part functioning, we're back to being deaf, or we're deaf 100% of the time.
So when that outside piece starts to fail, like what is the lifespan of that external piece? Because I know you said that the internal implant is made to last a lifetime, and those are actually implanted in babies and children as well as adults whose hearing starts to fail. Is that right?
That's exactly right. So currently the FDA guidelines are babies can be implanted as young as 9 months old, which is absolutely amazing. And the really mind-blowing part about that and why that's able to happen is the cochlea. So that little tiny, tiny, tiny snail-shaped piece of our inner ear is the only fully formed body part that we have at birth, or one
Oh,
of the only.
so
So
when you're born, that little snail-shaped inner ear is as large as it will ever be. So they're
yes,
able to put the implant in.
exactly. And the reason that that is important is because the sooner we can get auditory input and information into these babies, these newborns or 9 months old, the faster they will acquire speech and language. And another interesting part about that is that 90% of babies that are born deaf are born to normal hearing parents. So, that's of course, I'm not a parent myself, but, parents want the best for their children. They want all the possibilities, they want all the potential. And so being able to provide the cochlear implant at these young ages, then they can go on. And there is, yes, speech therapy and listening therapy that's required, for someone to catch up. But these kids do absolutely amazing. Most of them end up being mainstream school. You wouldn't even know that clinically they are deaf. It's amazing.
So when someone hears that, so for example, if a friend or a relative hears that someone's cochlear implant, the external part is starting to fail, they may ask, well, why don't you just use sign language? What would be the answer to that?
Yep. So that is probably the greatest misconception. And we get it all the time. Actually, it's probably the most frequent question I get as well. Another interesting statistic, if you will, is that 1% of deaf people, clinically deaf people in the US, utilize American Sign Language.
1%.
So that's not 1% of Americans. That is 1% of clinically deaf people. So there's like 48 million, I think is the latest figure, 48 million people in the US with hearing loss, 500,000 use sign language. And I am not against it or in any way. I think it's great to have, as a backup, but just like any other language, if you don't use it, you won't develop it. And, from my personal perspective, when I look back, I got my first cochlear implant just out of college at the age of 22. I couldn't even hear on the phone anymore. I was basically surviving by lip reading. And so at 22, I was like, my life is over. And then until this technology came along, and that was a last ditch effort, if you will, because I did not have very high hopes or very much optimism about it. And thankfully I was wrong. But when I look back over the last 25 years, I've traveled the world. I've lived on 3 continents. I now live in France for the past 12 years. I would not have been able to do the jobs that I've done if I couldn't hear. And that's just fact. And I also, what was more daunting to me at the time, at that age, was thinking, I'm going to be so limited in who I can communicate with. I'm sort of a social person. I'm like, I don't want my communication limited to this, tiny little segment of the population. So yeah, that's a good question.
Like you were saying, most kids are born to deaf children are born to hearing parents. So it's not like they would be growing up in a home where everyone is using sign language, right? They're implanted as a baby and they grow up as any normal hearing child. And so I can't even imagine the experience of being 18 or 20 years old and the external components are starting to fail, and the fear of going deaf, the world going silent. And I think one of the things that's really special about your foundation is that you, the founder, are also aware of the device. So you have that firsthand knowledge and understanding on a much deeper level. So when you first got your cochlear implant, I'm just curious, what were some of the sounds that were most meaningful to you that maybe the rest of us might take for granted?
It really is amazing. So I was born with normal hearing and slowly lost it starting at the age of 7 over the span of 15 years. So it was a very slow decline. And so in 1997, when I got the first implant, there were sounds that just didn't exist back then, or there were so many sounds that I hadn't heard in years. So it's kind of a fun experience in a way, because your brain is learning to interpret sounds in this new manner. And I can remember one of the very first things, I was working in an office setting, and I was at the copier one day and I hear this beeping sound. Like, what the heck is that? I'm looking, I'm like, I don't know. And so I look at the copier and it's flashing out of paper. So I just blurred out, and there's a whole bunch of people standing in this back office, and I'm like, oh my gosh, did you guys know the copier beeps when it's out of paper? And people were just like, because they didn't know I had hearing loss. They didn't even, they didn't know I had surgery, or most people didn't.
Right.
And so you just see people's eyes get like this big, what's going on? I was so excited. I'm like, okay, never mind. But just, hearing, this is a funny one, but it's just, again, one of the things that you just forget makes a sound. The sound that soda makes when you pour it over ice, and hearing like that, like after, you know, years of not being able to hear those types of things. But I think, now it's just, hearing just fills the world with color. I have likened it to like the movie The Wizard of Oz. When Dorothy steps into Oz and she's in the, goes into the Technicolor versus where she was in black and white.
Yeah.
That's the best description that I can give, because the world, when you can't hear and you don't know what's really going on around you, and you're missing social cues and safety cues, it feels very black and white. And then you get, and I want to be clear that as amazing as the cochlear implant technology is, it's still not quite normal hearing. So, we're not cured. And because of this ongoing upkeep of the external component, I think, sometimes people get confused by that. They think, well, you had a surgery and now it's done, but it's an ongoing, the upkeep is ongoing across the span of your life. But I think now it's just like the sound of laughter, of music. I mean, I'm a huge Christmas fan, so I've got the Christmas music going usually from like the beginning of November. I have a small little dog, and I hear her little toenails on the wood floor. And this crazy as this sounds, like I know her mood based on what I can hear, right? So if I hear her going click, I know she's coming in hot, like she's excited about something. Or if she's, coming slow, then I'll be like, oh, what's the matter? Just, it's so hard to, there's a million things. I mentioned the safety aspects as well. If there's sirens, or if our car is coming, or danger, you can't hear someone coming up behind you.
Right.
So many important safety aspects as well.
And to be able to participate in the hearing world means that you can, a cochlear implant recipient can go to school, they can get a degree, they can participate in sports, they can get a job and have, all of those things, right? So in getting to know you and learning more about cochlear implants, it absolutely blows my mind, first of all, that the internal component can last a lifetime. And I have to give props to them for being able to develop an external component that can last about 20 years. When I think about my cell phone, I think they program them to last about 2 years before they start to act funny and the battery starts to, go down and stuff like that. So when we talk about the cost of the maintenance, it's thousands of dollars every 18, 20 years.
It actually is more frequent than that. They come out with what they call upgrades, which is just like what our phones, or our smart technology is. So every 5 years or so, they, at least the company that I have, the technology that I have, about every 4 to 5 years, they will introduce an upgrade. Now, not everyone will be able to get that upgrade because of the cost. But even with Medicare and Medicaid, they allow for an upgrade every 5 years. And then there will also be costs in between. So it is rechargeable batteries or batteries. And, just like any other rechargeable battery technology, there's only a certain amount of cycles before you'll have to replace them. And so, for example, a battery is around $250. There's another component that is typically the first thing that will go out is just like this cable and a coil. And when you're wearing something on your head for 18 hours a day, it's going to wear out. It's a wire. And so you usually notice when that's happening, when it starts to sound staticky, or the sound becomes intermittent. So it comes in and it comes out, and comes in and comes out. And then, it might just go completely out. And so there are components that need to be replaced, every few years, and then the upgrades, potentially every 5 years, but most people don't end up getting every single upgrade because the insurance doesn't cover it as frequently, or there's a significant copay that prohibits people from getting those upgrades.
Right. And I know that you said that Medicare and Medicaid will, will cover the cost every 5 years or so, but a lot of private insurances don't cover the cost of maintaining that equipment. Why is that? It absolutely blows my mind. They'll pay for your glasses, they'll pay for any other kind of prosthetic device. Why wouldn't they help people continue to hear?
It is absolutely mind-boggling, to be perfectly honest, and it's the main reason that I actually started Joyful Life Cochlear Implant Fund in the middle of the pandemic. That was not that was not on the game plan at all. But having worked for one of the cochlear implant manufacturers for 8 years in the US, I know a lot of recipients. I know a lot of people who use these devices, and I knew already that upkeep was a challenge. Like, people weren't able to get upgraded, and I used to send, when I got an upgrade, I would send my old processors to people that I knew in the US so that they could have functioning equipment, because they might not be able to afford the cable coil or new battery. Here in France, our healthcare system reimburses me 100% of all my cost. But I know what that's like to, when I was describing, when you can sort of tell when something's acting up, or you turn on the device and there's no sound.
Yeah.
It's just like this entire full body fear of, what am I going to do? It's like, imagine you go to, you're running late for work, and you go to start your car and your car doesn't start, and you just have this, like, you just see your whole day flashing before your eyes, and it's going to be this whole thing. Well, put that on steroids, if you will. When that external device doesn't turn on, it's just, yeah, I mean, you feel it through every cell in your body, like the panic of, because we set up our entire lives, most of us, around being able to be part of the hearing world, like you said. So we're in perhaps mainstream schools, most likely. We're in working environments where we need to communicate, or we have a Zoom call, or we have whatever. And so it's so absolutely terrifying, because, the idea of losing your hearing a second time, sorry, I get a little emotional about that. It's just it's hard enough to lose your hearing the one time, but the thought of losing it a second time, and that's where it's so disheartening, because cochlear implants there's been data for 20 years that they are the most cost-effective medical device, second only to a pacemaker.
That's amazing.
Because the benefit that it gives, it just what we just discussed, you can participate in daily life. You're going to have a lot more opportunities. And what we're seeing, and I could have never imagined this, what we're seeing, because I thought, when I started, I'm like, okay, somebody's going to need a cable coil, or somebody's going to need some batteries, or somebody's going to need an upgrade. What I absolutely did not expect, and the micro niche that we are seeing in our applicants, is amongst 20-year-olds.
Why is that?
Because they have been implanted for a long time, and perhaps their parents' insurance was much better than the current insurance they have. So at this point, they hit their 20s, they age out of their parents' private insurance, they age out of any state, Medicaid, for example, or any state programs in their 20s. And the very first, applicant that we got was a young man in Alabama in his 20s, and his sound processor had been gone or down, I guess, not working for 6 months. So he was fired from his job. His mom was like, he's in depression. I don't know what to do. We can't get help. They've tried, and that's one of the things that we required is for Joyful Life Cochlear Implant Fund is we're their last hope, because we require them to have exhausted all other options. They've had to go through the insurance. They've had to apply for any state programs, vocational rehab, whose sole purpose, in my understanding, vocational rehabs, and each state calls it something different, but basically that organization exists to help people with disabilities maintain employment.
Right. And this is an entire sense that they have lost.
And so we were able to pretty quickly raise funds to get him a sound processor. He got another job. But just think about the psychological damage of 6 months and the fear of 6 months of silence, the suffering that he was going through. And his mom was, I deal mostly with parents that, they're the ones end up doing the applications and stuff because they're on a mission to find a solution and get some help so that their kids can be thriving members of communities. And I know a lot of times, people will say, oh, people are just looking for a handout or something like that. No, that is not what's happening here. Every single one that we've had applicant come in is either working full time and actually terrified that they're going to be fired because, they can't hear well enough, or they have been fired and they're desperate. They want to be working. They want to, they're not just looking for this handout. And so that's, a little bit of a stigma that we face as well.
I remember you telling me that one of the first recipients that we're going to be helping with this current year's fundraiser, she's also in her 20s, right? And when she called the insurance company, or had someone help her call the insurance company when her implant started to fail, they told her that, well, we can't help you, but we can send you, what was it? They offered to send her a vibrating alarm clock.
So
are you kidding me?
I had never understood fully the term spitting mad until her mom told me that story, because I couldn't form words. I mean, talk about, number one, absolutely insulting.
Right.
But what even sense does that make? And that was actually vocational rehab. They're the ones, their reason for existence is to keep people employed.
Right.
So they said, no, we can't help you pay for an external sound processor, but we can send you a vibrating alarm clock, which is how we wake up. We have, it's called a shake awake.
But once you're awake, you're on your own.
Right, exactly. And so I was like, okay, and she's another one. So she was working in food service as well. She has insurance, but it won't cover the sound processor. So she's very fearful also of what's her future going to be, yeah. So it's just absolutely mind blowing. And
yeah. So tell me about the Joyful Life Cochlear Implant Foundation. You guys, a lot of times when people, because we're in the middle of a fundraiser, we can talk about that in just a minute, but a lot of times when people donate, they wonder, like, where is this money going to go? So if somebody makes a donation to your organization, where does that go?
I really appreciate you asking that question, because I feel that I would go head to head with anyone in non 501c3 that's running leaner than we are from an operational perspective. As the executive director, I don't take a salary. We're all volunteers. I do the majority of, the social media and the outreach and all of that sort of stuff, so that the bulk of the funds that come in are actually going to what they're supposed to be going towards, and that's to help people here. So with the fundraisers that we're doing, our monthly overhead is less than $200, and that's mostly just for systems and processes of different programs and stuff, software type things that we need to run a business. So with the fundraisers specifically that we're doing, 100% of people's donations will go to help people keep their hearing. And I don't think there's too many organizations that can say that. And, we do regular updates, so exactly where your donation has gone. Because there's, unfortunately, so much bad press, or often is bad press, about nonprofits not managing their money well, or paying these ginormous salaries to their executive staff and all this kind of a thing. And so I'm very proud of that, and that's really important to me. But as a recipient who knows, like I said, that fear of you turn that device on, it's not working, I always think, okay, if we're going to spend $10 on this or $25 on this, that can go to help someone keep their hearing. And so I'm always having that, that thought process as we're raising funds, and okay, how can we help impact the most people?
Absolutely. And so when you raise, what is it like if someone needed a total external replacement? That would be, I think you said $6,000, but you're getting that at a huge discount because you also have an agreement with the manufacturer. Is that right?
That is correct. Most of the upgrades would be above $10,000.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we're seeing also is, even for people who have insurance, they're saying my copay is going to be $4,000 or $5,000, which, again, it's just that whole, people just don't have, particularly right now and through, in COVID, and even before that, that's a lot of money to have, at your disposal.
Right. Yeah. So tell us about the fundraiser.
Okay, so we have so many fun things going on all at the same time, but I'm very excited and so incredibly grateful to you, Tiffany, because the biggest opportunity that we have is through the fundraiser that you have set up through doTERRA, and that matching opportunity, which if we've gotten approval, if we raise $15,000, the doTERRA Healing Hands.
doTERRA Healing Hands Foundation,
yes.
Right?
Yeah, will match that 100%. So that will be an absolute game changer for our, organization that's 2 years old. We'll be able to help get upgrades for 5 cochlear implant recipients who are already in the queue. So they're very hopeful about that. And then in addition, we're having on December 3rd, the 3rd annual virtual holiday fundraiser. And it's just going to be a really fun event. We've got music. Our musical guest is the Regis University. They're based in Denver, Colorado. The Regis University Jazz Choir Ensemble. They're going to be singing Christmas songs throughout. We have a special message from the original Incredible Hulk himself, Lou Ferrigno, who many people don't know, has been deaf his entire life. He received a cochlear implant just 2 years ago, or less than 2 years ago, and he's in his 70s now, and he really regrets not doing it sooner. So he's really a big proponent of this amazing technology because, you know, he went his whole life struggling to communicate much more. You know, it was much harder than it could have been had he been implanted earlier. And we have the basically the world's foremost expert on cochlear implants, Professor Jim Patrick, who will be joining us. He was um, one of the engineers that was with Graham Clark, Dr. Graham Clark, who was the inventor of the multi-channel cochlear implant.
Wow.
They did the first surgeries and developed the technology in a lab situation at the University of Melbourne in Australia. And then he went on and spent 40 years developing cochlear implant technology, improving it, giving us all these wonderful advancements. One of the things I forgot to mention about the upgrades, which is pretty cool, is that with each upgrade, we get better hearing.
Oh.
Because the advancements in technology, just like anything else, microphone technology, the chips, you know, so our devices get much, much smaller. As time goes on, we have amazing, I can do wireless streaming now, just all these amazing advancements. And it's actually, we're kind of sassy about that now because we're like, well, my hearing is going to improve as I age, and other people's is not. So that's one of the amazing benefits of the upgrades is, you know, improved settings to help in like noisy situations or difficult situations. So, but anyway, so Professor Patrick will have a special message, and he's been a ardent supporter, and he's just an amazing human being. So we have a lot of fun things. There's a movie that's been filmed and it's in process, in production, called Rally Caps, the movie. And it's around, it's a true story. And one of my board members is actually, she wrote the book with her dad. And it took them like 15 years to get the movie made. They got it made in COVID, of all things. But three of the child actors, it's a baseball film centered around summer camp and leadership and change and all these types of things. And so three of the child stars of Rally Caps movie will be sharing a special message with us, two who actually have cochlear implants in real life. So it'll be just a fun and festive event. It doesn't matter if you have hearing loss or not. It's just a fun thing. And 100% of the ticket price goes to keeping people on the air. And then the final thing we have is Lou Ferrigno has generously donated to do a private charity auction, a Zoom. So you can get 15 minutes one-on-one conversation with the original Incredible Hulk. So that's
Oh my
really
gosh.
exciting. Yeah.
I don't even know what I have these memories of being a kid sitting there and watching him on TV. How cool that he's going to be donating his time to a fan.
Yeah,
So it's going to be like
absolutely.
a silent auction. Is it? Yeah. So, you know, I want to say that that's just going to be an amazing event on December 3rd. Anyone who's watching, you know, we're going to put the link so you can grab your tickets so that you can hop on that Zoom event on December 3rd. Also, we'll share the link to be able to donate. So I think the matching fundraiser. So for those of you who are not familiar with doTERRA is the world's largest essential oil company. The focus is just all on natural health and wellness, but doTERRA wants to be the company that not only sources the best essential oils, but also helps the most around the world. And the Healing Hands Foundation has donated over $10 million to various worthy causes all around the world and here at home in the United States. And so I was able to submit, and Angela and I were able to submit and get approval for a fundraiser through doTERRA Healing Hands Foundation. So for the month of December, if you click on our link, whatever donation you make will be matched by doTERRA up to $15,000. So after the end of December, you'll always be able to donate directly to the Joyful Life Cochlear Implant Fund. But if you can do it in December, it'll be matched and doTERRA will double it for us. So, I also want to suggest that if you work for a company who is looking for a worthy cause to support, or if you yourself, want to share the link, help us by getting the word out. Please go ahead and share this video, share the links with anyone that you think this would touch their heart, anyone that you feel would like to be a part of this. And yeah, Angela, do you have any final thoughts before we go? This has been amazing.
Thank you so much. I'm so incredibly grateful. I'm still marveling every time I hear you talk about this, this amazing opportunity and possibility of this matching fundraiser that you so graciously came to me and just said, "Hey, would you want me to do this?" Then I'm still blown away by just you. You're an amazing person, and doTERRA as well, and what they're doing with that. To be that generous, it's just incredible, and it will be such a game changer for us to be able to help so many more people. So I just really appreciate you so much.
Well, I appreciate you. And I want to thank you so much for sharing yourself and your time with us. You are an extraordinary woman, and the world is a better place with you in it. So guys, I want to invite everyone here watching to click the link. We're going to put it in the comments and share it and help us spread the word. Okay. And if you or your company is looking for a great cause to support, please consider donating. And we hope to see you on December 3rd. Thank you so much, Angela.
Thank you, Tiffany.